Okay, so like I said, you want to create a new action script file. So I'm creating a new action script 3.0 file and waiting for that one to open. All right, meanwhile, on another page, what I've done is I went ahead and searched for, let me pull that up to see what a ball bounce timing sheet. Okay, now that ball bounce timing sheet is going to be crucial for figuring out our timing. Okay, so what we're going to be animating is obviously it's going to be a ball bouncing, but we need to have timing down because as a ball bounces, its arc degrades. Okay, you don't, unless you live in a frictionless world, when you bounce a ball, it will gradually bounce less and less and less. So, what timing does is it helps us figure out how much it reduces each time. Now, when you first get started animating, having the timing sheet or some kind of guide can help you. But as you progress through this, you probably won't need it as much later on. All right, so I found this timing sheet. Now it doesn't exactly fit into my space. To resize things in Animate, what you're going to do is the tool over here on the left, third one down, it's the free transform tool. I'm going to go ahead and click on that one, and what you get is a bounding box. Okay, now you want to be careful with this because one of my biggest pet peeves is when people take and they just play with it all willy-nilly and make it shape however they want. The problem is if you're doing that, you're messing up what the original intended timing was. So this is set up with a specific timing in mind. If you hold down the shift key when you resize anything in any Adobe product, what it's going to do is constrain the properties. So no matter where I move this mouse to, it's not going to distort. It will always stay the same. So for instance, if I let go of the shift key right now, it becomes this very distorted, tall arc that doesn't bounce very far. But when I hold the shift key down, I can then stretch it out closer to the size that I'm going to need it to be. Now I want to move that in a little bit more. I don't want the 31 to be all the way at the end, and I don't want the 1 to be like floating out in space. So I'm actually going to take it so that 1 is right there. And then let's grab that and hold shift again. Stretch that out just a little bit more. I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard as well to kind of nudge it into place. All right, so I like that position right there. Now, in Animate, what you have is your stage. We already talked about that in the last video. And then you've got a toolbar down the right side here. We're going to be working with the toolbar today, but we're also going to work with layers. Okay, so down in your timeline, that's this area down at the bottom, you're going to find your layers panel. Okay, now your layers, right now, all your layers come up as layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, etc. as you add them. Okay, but we know what this is. It's a background. It doesn't need a name like layer 1. So to rename things, and this is good mainly when you start getting a whole bunch of layers stacked. For this one, we're probably only going to have 2 layers. So it's not going to be that important to know. You're going to remember the difference between layer 1 and layer 2. But when you start creating more and more complex animations like the one that you saw earlier, it is important that you have things named descriptively. You've got to use descriptive naming on your layers. So on layer 1, I'm going to double click right on the word itself. There we go. And then I can type in a new name for it. I'm going to call it background. Okay, pretty straightforward, and then just click off of it and it should be in there as background. Now I'm going to do one more thing to this because I like where the background is. I don't want to accidentally move it around. Over here is underneath the lock symbol is a little dot. When I click that, it's locked. Under here is the eye symbol. If I didn't want to see it right now, I could click under there and it would hide it. Okay, but I do want to see it. It's important for what I'm doing. So I've got it, but it's locked. So now, no matter where I click on the page, I can't move it around. Okay, that's great, except now I want to do something. And in order to do anything in Animate, Photoshop, Illustrator, you need a layer to work on. So to create a new layer, I'm going to go down here into the bottom. Now this is kind of a universal symbol for Photoshop, Animate, Illustrator. Anytime you want to create a new layer, it looks like this. It's a little box with a little triangle in the corner. And what it's supposed to indicate is like a new paper. So it's a new page. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click New Layer, and it comes up Layer 2. And I'm going to name this one Ball. Okay, so now that one's set. Now, the first thing that I want to do here is I already know that my animation is going to go, each one of these indicates a frame. Okay, so I already know that my animation is going to go at least 31 frames. So what I'm going to do is down here in the background layer, I'm going to count over. So there's frame 30, and then right next to it would be frame 31. I'm going to click into that frame so it's highlighted. Okay, I just did a left click right there. Now on your keyboard, okay, the function keys along the top row up above the number keys. You have these keys that are named F1, F2, F3, etc. In this case, we're going to use F5. What F5 is going to do, it's going to create an endpoint. So now what this means is this animation is going to run for 31 frames, okay, with just this. So it's not a very interesting animation. If I were to do a test animation of it by pressing Control Enter, it would export it, and apparently it doesn't like that I'm just trying to make it. There we go. So that's my animation. There's no movement to it whatsoever. Okay, so I'm going to X out of that one. And now I want to get started on the actual animation. Okay, so first up, we need to create an object that's going to be animated. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in the next movie. Okay, so I've given you enough for my 6 minutes here, and in the next movie, I'm going to create a simple object.